Good morning, and welcome to our continuing series, Interviews with Aurovillians. This is our second interview with Frederick. Namaste. And you were talking about the very early days. I would think it would be 68, 69, in Oroville. The urn, your house, and these fascinating people who came, Austin Delaney and others. He was teaching at the beach, I believe.
They were playing basketball. He had his house behind the basketball court.
Yes.
Built himself a ladder to secretly climb over the wall and practice his shots. Crazy guy.
He came to the U.S. when I was in New York.
New York, okay.
And I had a restaurant on Bleecker Street.
Okay.
And he came to visit. Yeah, they were very interesting. Vincenzo. I used to travel with him to Chennai to get parts. And he would eat from any stand. And he said, I just eat, and when I get sick, then it's over with, and I can eat from then on any place. And he could eat in any place. Amazing.
Yeah. Tough guy. Sicilian.
So, please continue with this.
You were mentioning that you would like to have some reflection of some of the people who played a role in the later development of Oroville.
Yes.
Now, because I'm also wondering, particularly in the light of having celebrated now and having been part of the core group for celebration of the 50th anniversary, that we wanted to bring out monograms on people who played a role in creation of Oroville. And I think I was, to some extent, one of the channels, because these people never were actually Orovillians, they never lived in Oroville, they were from outside. So there is an early time J.D. Tata, then obviously there is Satprem, and then there is Kirit Joshi.
What about Karan Singh?
There is Karan Singh, and there is Roger Anger.
Right. Well, there's five.
There are 5 Pandavas. We have to give them each a role. Who is Yudhishthira?
Parts, yes. And I think we've never covered any of them in our interviews.
Well, let me give you a little bit the gist without going too much into the biographical details, because there are lots, of course, a lot of how J.D. Tata stepped in and saved us from being expelled from Oroville, how he saved Savitra and Francis. There are individual little episodes, but I felt like saying something about how the divine chess player uses her pawns, of which you are one, I guess. And each one contributes a small distilled drop into her whole cauldron. And this particular drop is absolutely necessary and irreplaceable. I think one of the most respected person in the Indian public life, not only because he was the head of the largest corporate house at that time, but also because of his stature and of his dignity, was J.D. Tata. How he came, how we interacted, this is another story. But he created the nobility and the link and the core value of what Oroville truly can represent for India. That it is not a little island of the happies, it is interconnected to India to Asia to the world, and he had access to the Prime Minister, he had access to funds, he had access to on many international levels. And in his simplicity and in his childlike innocence, he brought a great protection and hope for Oroville. Very beautiful man.
How did you interact with him?
Well, I sort of became the link for him to Oroville on some level. Later on, he had an official position, member of the International Advisory Board, I think also member of the Governing Board, advisor to us, direct contact to Indira Gandhi. That may have gone through Kirit Joshi and others, but on a personal level, fundraising, meeting him, emergencies, and he took a personal interest. He was a very, very loving man. He came to Orason's home. I had met him because the first thing with Vincenzo was we wanted to get a source of water, so we constructed a windmill, which didn't work. And I had brought a photo exhibition with a group, with Claude Arpi and others, to Bombay. We were there in the Jehangir Art Gallery, and suddenly Yolande, who was a contact with him, another story, brought him in. Small, dapper man, walking in, fast walking, very well, very beautiful, attired, looks around, comes to the desk which I'm looking after photos, loose photos, greets me, sees a photo, what is this? Of course he knew what it was, but that's how he worked. That's a windmill, sir. Who made it? We made it. Does it work? No. What do you do? Well, I have tried to get some help. I have written to the National Aeronautical Laboratory in Bangalore to get some advice. Did you get a reply? No. You please send me the correspondence. 3 days later, I had 4 cars, telegrams coming from Bangalore. One Mr. Frederick, the chairman, he was the chairman of the National Aeronautical Laboratory. So I think all told, we were at the end, they had developed a windmill which is still all over Oroville, A4 or F4 or something like this. And they sent it all to us because they had sent it to National Institute and all broken down. We took it, we carted it here, we put it back on, we field tested it, and we reported back to them. And that actually is a very good way of Oroville, not only having the creative skill and the manual skill, but also the possibility to field test things. I think this is one of the roles one mother talks about, a laboratory and experiment.
Yes.
I mean, you have done a lot of things with the flowers and the botanical thing, and also your singing and recording. This is trying matter and field test it here. Jerry Tata. Maybe one of the closest I felt personally. I think it has been my role, in a strange way, always to be a communicator, to be a link with people, particularly often with elder men. Sat Prem, we didn't know about the agenda. The Frenchies knew a bit about it. Sat Prem would come out. We didn't quite know what is that white-clad little Frenchie. Then we came to know private translation of the agenda, and he was the only one, when we cried for help, who stood up behind us and said, we have to support. He stood as the only one. And then around this developed this whole very intense time with Sat Prem. I think his conversation on Oroville in the agenda with the mother are maybe the treasure of Oroville on which Oroville can base itself. He then also got directly involved in Oroville. He became a member of Oromitra, Friends of Auroville organization, with J.R.D. Tata and Sat Prem and Kirit Joshi were there. He also interacted by coming out, by asking us to, stand firm. He visited us in prison. The real spiritual, after the mother's departure, who gave us some spiritual contents.
And you said he visited you in prison?
Yeah, we were all...
Can you give me a little bit on that?
Well, I was twice in prison. One was where we were, I think it's the hunger strike, or it was the occupation of the hut of Nava. I don't know what triggered it off. Actually, I was in Delhi, and then I heard that 10 or 11 people had been arrested, rounded up, and put into the Tindivanam prison. And from Tindivanam, they were then shipped to, I think, Villupuram. When I came back, I didn't even come to Auroville. I immediately went to Villupuram and courted arrest, and was also arrested then. So I was with them in the prison.
What was the reason for the arrest?
Trespassing. Their society had brought out a lot of things, and the one legal thing, they're accused of being sex maniacs and drug addicts and doing all sorts of horrible things. But the only legal reason is if they can establish that they are the private owner of this land, that we are illegally trespassing. That was the only. And they had the politics, they had the media, they had the money in their hands. But in order to clarify, because of often misunderstanding, the ashram never participated in this. The society in Navajata made out that this is my samadhi, this is our bakery, this is our printing press, this is our swimming pool, fooling the public. There were individuals who were siding with, Pradyut was one of them, and there were some others. So our conflict was with the society, and I had individual contacts with the ashram from the time we were there together, who would personally, Nolini and Nipendra and so on, they would all, the captains Bhatti and Manoj, now the managing, would come and support us, but said we cannot come out forward. We are not trained for this kind of work. This is not our work. One has to respect that, mother, and wanted something else from them. And at that time, she was quite clearly feeling that there should be almost a greater separation between ashram and Auroville, as she says to Sat Prem. Now there comes a view where I feel Auroville goes through different avatars of becoming. Initially, when mother wasn't sure that she would last till 100, she says, there was definitely the idea of the biosphere was in the air, isolated, protected, accelerated evolution of those who come in are the guinea pigs, whatever. It was very intense, like, spaceship. That was one avatar. And many of the messages stemmed from that side when she talks about, isolations, protection. So we have to be sensitive and have viveka, power of discrimination. We cannot just take quotations from that time and hit people over the head with it. It has to be from a conscious. The next is, after her leaving, this whole turmoil, 73 to 79.
I was involved. You probably heard. Yeah. Because you were at Bharat
Nivas,
with David Wickenden.
Yeah.
And that's when my head was split open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is like the churning, the violence, the breaking open of the coconut, the sacrifice, the surrender. And Auroville was becoming like a pioneer, a bridgehead. It did not have any kind of international, UNESCO and the countries of the world. We were just surviving. We were just holding on. But it bonded us very strongly. It created a true sense of fraternity, of immediacy.
How long were you in jail?
First time was maybe 4 or 5 days, I don't quite recall. There was a second time when we were carted off from here, from the Matrimandir. We were, I think, a hunger strike, and then we were shipped in. And I remember Renu, little Renu, we were all carted in, and Renu wanted to jump into the police van. And then I was approached and said, look, please do something about this baby. We police, we don't arrest babies. Can you do something? And she was very strong. She wanted to be there. I want to be here. The kids were on fire. And she would be one you could also interview. She never forgave me that when she was asleep in the police van, on the urging of the police officers, I took her, I brought her home, or gave her to Shyama or something, and we were arrested and then also sent there. That was also not that long. I mean, it was a bit weird, a little cell with a shithole there and a couple of rats. It was a bit odd, I must say. But then people came, Kirit came, and that set off an investigation, where then, and then we also went to, then they set up the Kulkarni Commission, Kulkarni was that time Lieutenant Governor of Pondicherry. Anyhow, this is Sat Prem in his whiteness, in his spiritual courage, unbelievable sense of this agenda would not exist if it would not have been for that Frenchman sitting in front of her and pulling it out of the mother. And she loved him. The third one is Roger Angers, with whom I would feel the most at ease. He is, I don't want to belittle him, but mother definitely was intrigued by him. He was a very handsome playboy. What am I supposed to do? There is this letter where she writes to the husband of her granddaughter, Purna Prem. I have a town for you to build. Will you do it? And he says yes. He was in the middle of a big successful architectural firm in Paris, building the first skyscrapers in Grenoble and so on. And she says yes. And he says, I always knew that he was a man of the project. So she invested a lot of him, but I don't think he understood what he had signed up for. I had good meals with him. I had drinks, and we were joking. We were not holy, We were, and he, professionally, I think he had a true vision. Mother says he has seen it. He has taken. He knows. Several models were presented to her, and finally he got it. And in the end, I must also say the unbelievable pointedness. Mother has given me something to fulfill. And in spite of all the obstacles, the amount of hostility and obstacle and physical abuse, he was
by Aurovilians?
By Aurovilians, we don't want all this rubbish and this, and you just quietly. But mother had told me, I have seen it, this is what it is. But that's all wrong, anyhow, it's really something. There is a last picture of him sitting on one of the benches, looking with his back to the camera, looking at the Matrimandir, also already old, where I feel that thing which he gave Mother, I promised you a city and I could only give you this, which is the Matrimandir, which basically is the soul. And it's one of the ways of the Mother, how she roped them all in, the Navajatas, the Anantas, the Rogers, they all had a role to play. And the fourth one is Kirit Joshi, a sadhak. Whenever he entered a room, there would be some light cast. When he was twice chairman, he would be able to bring people together and bring something of that inner meaning of Auroville and the interpretation. Puts the child into the center of the stage, giving classes, and truly a very bhakti, loving form. I had some encounters, like you mentioned this thing, he said you kissed his hand, he kissed your hand, I don't know. But I also had, just before he left, I had a very intense moment with him. He was in the ashram nursing home.
You mentioned Ananta. You had any?
Yeah, definitely. Ananta was whenever I needed time out from the heavy duty yoga, I would go to his island. I don't come from a period where drugs were taken in Germany. Alcohol is a drug, yes.
Sure.
But nothing ever. I don't know what Ananta was up to. Mother loved him. He was wild in Ananta. And then this restaurant on the beach, forgot the name. He would climb in the night over the ashram walls to see the mother. No, I had a lot of interaction with him. A bit sad the way he then wanted to come. He was stuck up in Sri Lanka, couldn't come back. A bit sad in the end. There was a fifth person, we said. Who was the fifth one? Jayaditata, Kirit Joshi, Satprem, Roger, and... maybe... Doesn't matter now.
Did you ever meet John Kelly?
Yeah. He lived in our house upstairs in Rue du Mar. He gave us, which is all written down in Maggie's book in the end, Earthman. Yeah. But he gave us a story how he was in the Second World War and how he was getting direct inspiration. Don't move now, stay. Now you cross. How that big sir was giving him that. Very, very nice. And he then looked after Bharat Niwas, storeroom here, and so on. Austin Delaney, you mentioned. There were characters at that time,
Absolutely, we all were.
We all were characters. But it's a little bit like what happens even in the movies. At that time we had heroes and villains. It was very clear. It was not so complicated as it's now, no?
True.
Now it's more like situations, mother arranged situations, like it's not so much Narad and Frederick and you, it's more like creating scenes where things can emerge, whether it was, for example, this very beautiful morning, Shirabindu's birthday, bonfire at the Matrimandir. Right now, we are getting very crucial scenes right now. Auroville is shaking at the roots, but that's another conversation.
We'll do that another time.
Yeah. Basically, I would say that when I spoke about this different period, then the pioneer period, then once the Emergency Act, Auroville Emergency Act, and the Mr. Ojha and so on were appointed, the receivers, the administrators in 1979, then it started stabilizing.
I think our fifth person was Karan Singh.
Karan Singh, yeah. Karan Singh, correct. Karan Singh has to be given, he's a Raja, he's a Maharaja, so you come, you touch his feet. He is a very erudite and a very noble presence, and he has always added this dimension of India and this dimension of the Vedic and Upanishads and the true Rishi quality, Kirit always referred to it. He actually even said that at one moment Kirit saw Sri Aurobindo standing behind Karan Singh. And the mother in the agenda also speaks about this young man, the Maharaja who has come, who has a great future. Even he could be the Prime Minister of India. He has steered Auroville through very troubled periods, but he has also brought about the growth and the development of Auroville. I think the fact that Matrimandir, the building, is completed can be very much seen as part of his contribution. He was the one who, when the 100th centenary celebration, he was chairman of the Sri Aurobindo Centenary Committee in 1972. An amount of money came to the ashram, the hospital was built in the ashram, and in Auroville some other things. The centenary edition was published. And now again, for the 50th anniversary, he brought about, through his things, the Prime Minister visited, and 14 crores of rupees were given as an ad hoc grant for celebrating and building some facilities in Auroville. He is our chairman now, and he is definitely, you see, Kirit, in spite of the fact that he often refers and has written so much, he once told me, by nature actually he is Greek. And Jayaditata said that by nature he's actually more Western than Indian, and he always felt that he wanted to give back more to India. Maybe Auroville was a way of showing his gratitude to India. Satprem, none of them were here, none of them lived here. And Karan Singh had the grace not ever to really interfere in Auroville. Even though as a chairman, as a chairman, he had all the rights and even the duties maybe, but he had an ability to give that free space. While the other three, or four for that matter, Jayaditata never really interfered. But Satprem and Kirit Joshi, and Roger was given actually the work, but sometimes they took up roles directly telling us what to do. Where one would say, and maybe I had to say it sometimes, sometimes you have to also look at the ground realities, and you have to understand that things sometimes have to work differently. I give you one example which I found a bit strange. When Kirit Janata government came in and he had lost his chairmanship, I don't know what, he was not re-elected. And then he said to me once, and when the Aurovillian rejected me, I said, Kirit, what are you talking about, rejecting you? No, but the things which I felt they should do, they never accepted. I said, what are these things? Then he said, well, there should be no exchange of money, education for the sake of learning and not for diplomas, no personal property, and the governance should be by a collective psychic governance.
This is what Mother wanted.
That's exactly what I told him. How can you say these were things you were telling us and we are not fulfilling them? This is what Mother told us. And it's not that we are not fulfilling it. Each in its own way are striving towards it. But the ground realities, the actual physical things, it doesn't mean that we have rejected it. So to say about yourself, saying that we rejected your requests is somehow not understanding, because you're not living here, what actually is day-to-day happening on the ground. No? I'm not criticizing him, I'm just saying they had a specific role, Satprem also. And in the end he had to bring in some of the things which were for me extremely difficult. He would send me letters saying, this Auroville is in danger, this is only for the true brothers and sisters. You have to throw, the boat is sinking, you have to throw out the rats. Please, what am I supposed to do with a letter like this? And I couldn't, and the strict Satramians felt that I was not following his demands.
He wrote the same thing to me.
No.
What do you mean calling these people brothers and sisters?
No, I did the same. When Piero and Gloria was attacked, I wrote a letter to the ashramites, and I felt they have to stand up. Everybody respects Piero and Gloria. And Gundas were hired, and they were in the night through the mosquito net, hit by iron rod. What is this? There has to be some response. And I also wrote to the brothers and sisters, and Satprem also, they are not your brothers and sisters anymore. I can't say. Anyhow, there is this last, to just complete this with the passing of the Emergency Act and then the installation of the Oroville Foundation Act, there has established itself now. And now comes the thing which is a very personal interpretation. And that's after first saying, no, Narad, I really don't feel like talking. It comes back quite strongly, especially in connection of the 50th anniversary. Mm-hmm. And we are exposed now. Now we are coming, for my feeling, which is not denying or annulling the three previous avatars, but Oroville is entering now another incarnation, which is to be really a laboratory for the world. And where the isolation, the turbulence, the protection, now we are on the map, we are recognized. Now we can look up, open out, and reach out and interconnect and come into Oroville's deeper raison d'etre for, preventing whatever Mother says, the Third World War, or spelling a hope for the human unity. And the type of Orovillians and people who come here are different now. And we have to change our entry group, financial arrangement, to be more welcoming. When Mother says, yes, welcome to all people of goodwill. Yes. So we are at the shifting into another phase. No?
But I want to ask you about, I'll tell you about a young girl, Yulia, who's a singer. And she asked if I could give her one voice lesson. I did, and I said, at my house, and I said, why don't you go to the Samadhi? She said, I don't know anything about the ashram. I was weeks in Oroville and no one mentioned the ashram to me.
Yeah. I think certain separation or identities which were evolving in the first three phases, they're gone, they're over. Now we can move again into a greater harmony, into a greater collaboration, in effect, I feel Oroville is threatened now by other forces, and there those who are connected with Sri Aurobindo and the Mother have to hold together and protect each other. The ashram can learn something from Oroville.
Absolutely.
They got stuck a little bit, and we definitely lead the goodwill and the protection from the ashram. I was very, very moved when Kirit, who had taken a stand for Oroville, and he was threatened by people in the ashram for his stand. But when he felt sick, Manoj took him back in. He says, he's one of ours, and he looked after him in the nursing home, in the treasure house. No? So there is a gesture of identity and oneness, no? Yes. And that is our strength in the end. No? Yes. It's not you are different from me, but there is something overarching where one can work together. No? Yeah, I go to the Samadhi. I went there now to the Samadhi. People have to know, but we do have to find a way of communicating. The pendulum is swinging from once. We don't want to be a religion. We don't want to proselytize. We don't want to preach. To not mentioning it at all. It's another extreme, no?
Exactly.
So we have to find a conscious, living dynamic, no?
Can you tell a little bit about some of the new people coming and their contributions or their difficulties?
Well, we all have our own ideas why we landed up here. Francis landed up because he thought Pondicherry was a French restaurant. People come here for all sorts of reasons, it doesn't matter. I'm going to give a talk to some Weltwärts people who are sponsored by the German government. They're basically the Peace Corps which we had in America before. There are about 25 young German students coming for a year here and being distributed. Orville can be like Krishna, like a thief in the night. We don't have to bang the drums of spirituality and you have to read, what have you read of Sri Aurobindo and what is this? It's like the Quran or the Bible, forget it. It will come in on its own way. We have to be sensitive. I think we have to mention it. Mother Mary said, don't make propaganda, but if there is a question, the information should be available. They come because the world is like Krishna asked Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, why did you come? And Krishna says, because the earth cried out in pain. No? The earth is crying out in pain. And people come, maybe like me, I don't know, 60 years ago, I was in pain. What happened with this Nazi and fascist and it's rising its head again.
And you must have seen so much destruction in Germany.
Yeah, but even it's more this, but the core, deeper values, these are put into question, no? These are putting. And the only one who actually, from my feeling, but without even having to name it, the only one who gave any light to me for the existence of evil is Sri Aurobindo.
Absolutely.
No?
Absolutely.
The only one who gave any reason. Somebody was telling me, I cannot live with what is the word you use? With suffering, children suffering, unsolicited suffering, or whatever it's called. I don't know the English word. My brother is a pediatric oncologist. He gets young kids, 9, 10 years old, with a terminal cancer. So how do you explain this? Can you please give me? Sri Aurobindo is for me the only one who can not explain it away, but let you allow to look at it. No? So this kind of issues is the young people coming and they can discover something. I mean, if we speak about the Matrimandya being the soul which will build the body around it, then we have to allow that soul, not we have to go to Matrimandya like to the church, but allow that deeper psychic quality to enter us. And Sri Aurobindo describes, and Mother describes, what are these adjectives? There is a sweetness, there is a consciousness, there is a taste on the tongue, there is a vastness, there is a, So this can be transmitted by our action to these young people.
What have you been doing since the 70s?
I don't know.
You must have been involved in so much different activities. Can you give us some overview of things?
I tell you what often bounces back. I'm like a rubber band. I want to be spiritual and I want to do heavy-duty yoga like in Zen in Japan also. My nature, Mother refers to it. She says, Frederick est très gentil. I have that nature, no?
She said that about Shelley too.
Yeah.
When Udar took Shelley at 1 year and put her on mother's lap, she said, très gentil et très très sage.
Oh, so good. Oh, good.
How about that?
At another occasion, with Ananta, by the way, who had been down with Panditji to Rameshwaram, and I had some contact with Panditji. It's a long story, but when that was brought back to her, and I was in turmoil in Germany whether I should now break off my studies and come back, which they were urging me to come. Mother refers to something which happened, and she says, there is a spiritual vision and he is the link. So
The link.
The link. A link.
Interesting.
Now, it has always been, when I spoke about these 5 people, or whether it was, what have you been doing since 17? I did hold jobs. I mean, we created the Tamil Fund for Rural Development. We started a midday kitchen. I was director of sports for, 20 years. I'm still doing it. We set up schools and built a house for the world to show to the world that we're here for good. But then, I might say, what actually in the end was focusing more in representing Auroville to the government, to the lawyers, to the courts. I did also go into the various internal committees. So I find now, forget about the past, I find now, 80, just got 80, that at this age, when I want to find it's beauty which becomes very strong. It used to be right and wrong and truth, yeah? The Satya and the Ritam. For me, it's now the Brihad, the vastness, and the beauty. And there is a beautiful message by the mother which she gave to the inauguration of La School on something which Roger built. It's a piece of art, and she said, it is through beauty that the divine manifests in matter. So there's something in this, but beauty also has that sense of harmony. Things sometimes shocking. You become more vulnerable. You get more shocks. Young people who were there in the beginning, and Auroville didn't turn out to be the way it was in the first avatar projected. But they came for that, and they find it didn't work, it didn't happen. And leave, they fall sick, they die, they commit suicide. It's sad. And now I'm surrounded by people who are popping off, no? I mean, it's like my generation is going.
Yeah.
Gérard Maréchal has gone. There's quite a number of people. Miriam.
Yes.
And somehow this sense of there is this shifting. You have to be aware of the shifting. Maybe you have to shift from expectation to aspiration, that you don't project into the future so much. Just see that. And there I feel I would like to create situations like we did in the 50s, where young people can come, spend some time here, get recharged and go back. That would have not been possible in the first 2 periods of Auroville. No. You would have to be here. You have no right to say anything about Auroville because you're not living here. This is gone.
It's gone.
She takes Kirit Joshi at one point, who says, no, I have to be back for your darshan. He says, Kirit, are you only at this stage? Don't you know my physical body has spread out all over the world? No? So we have to now move into that recognition. No?
Absolutely.
We are still local specific. There are certain things which he has put here into the ground, and we are still being nourished from it. But its flowering is now wide now.
For me, beauty is everything and vastness.
Yeah, we are.
And samatha.
Yeah.
Sri Aurobindo said the first thing in my yoga is equilibrium.
No, there is a kinship. I know from the time we played basketball together. There is a similarity. Yeah, sort of. Some were cut from the same block, and each one has taken its different route. No.
Yeah.
Okay, Nara.
Wonderful. Perhaps one day we can meet again and pick up where we left off.
Take care.
Because there must be a lot happening in Oroville now that the world does not see. Very positive things.
Yeah.
We talk about desalination, wind energy,
So
solar
many
energy.
things.
It would be great. Thank you.
Take care, man.
Thank you.